brought to you by Allstate, whose policies now include protection for your home, your family, as well as your car. You're in good hands with Allstate. And now, let's all play What's My Line?
And now, live from New York, let's meet our What's My Line panel. First, the delightful star of stage and television, Miss Arlene Francis.
And now, one of the reasons the Broadway play comedy Mary Mary is such a spectacular success is one of its shiniest stars, Mr. Barry Nelson.
And now, the oracle of Broadway, the widely read syndicated columnist of the New York Journal American, Miss Dorothy Kilgallen.
And on my left, our popular publisher panelists who will be seen every day this week in the afternoon on the new game Password on this station, I think.
Network.
This network, yes. Bennett, Cerf.
Thank you, Dorothy. And here's our famous news moderator and polysyllabic pangendrum, John Charles Daly.
Well, it's time to issue the annual fall warning. Bennett's taking to the road again, so lock up all the stock in the barn. Where are you going this time, Bennett? Michigan, Grosse
Battle
Pointe?
Creek,
Battle
Normal,
Creek.
Illinois, Missoula, Montana, Billings, and Grosse Pointe.
Grosse Pointe? So you've been warned. If you need a vacation, take it now. Bennett will be there this week. I must say, Barry Nelson, it's very nice to have you with us on the panel tonight. And, we hope you have a lot of fun, but are quite puzzled and completely puzzled by the occupations which we're going to present to you. We'll also have a mystery challenger before the members of the panel a little bit later in the program, and we'll meet our first challenger. And now let's meet our first contestant. Will you enter and sign in, please? Stephen Geiger, right, sir? Mr. Geiger, I will refrain from the obvious Geiger counter, and I trust Bennett will do the same.
I hope so.
Where are you from, sir?
New York City.
From New York City. Well,
Correct.
I dare say our panel are all familiar to you. May I present the panel? Mr. Geiger, join me over here. Do you know how we keep score, sir?
Yes, I do.
Then we'll let the audience in the theater and the audience at home know exactly what your line is. All right, panel, Mr. Geiger is salaried and deals in a product, and we'll begin the general questioning with Arlene Francis.
Mr. Geiger, is it a useful product?
Yes, it is.
Is it a product that I might use?
Yes.
Is it a product that is found in the home?
Yes.
Is it a product I could hold in my hand?
Yes, you can.
Is it a product that I would put on my person?
Yes, sometimes.
Is it a product that would look unusual if I wore it in the house when I was having company?
Yes.
I would say this, with your permission, that we would agree that in most circumstances it would look unusual if you were to wear it in the house when you had company, but we can think of a circumstance when it might be worn and would not be considered unusual.
Well, would it be termed in any way a costume?
Yes,
Is it something I might wear to a masquerade?
you might.
Is it a masquerade costume? Is it a thing that I might wear over my eyes?
You can.
Could it be considered a mask in any sense of the word?
Yes, it can.
It's a mask?
Halloween there.
Oh, happy Halloween, of course.
Well, I'll be.
I'm sorry.
That's perfectly all right. This is the fun of it. You know, we do what we think is the obvious thing, which
I'll
is
ride right out of here on my broom.
But it failed this time. We thought we might just get you, you know, somewhere out thinking of serious matters, or certainly everything except Halloween, but you fooled us, and you got it.
Halloween is pretty serious.
Actually, this is a very serious thing. You are with a company, are you not?
That is correct.
What is the name of the company?
Desart Brothers here in New York.
And this is...
Manufacturers of Halloween masks.
No pumpkins.
No pumpkins.
But you make all kinds of masks. They cover the whole face and cover the eyes. And...
Costumes as well, novelties. Complete line of Halloween goods.
Well, I'm sorry we didn't give the panel more trouble, but I hope you had some fun being with us,
certainly
Mr. Guy. It was nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
And What's My Line? Thank
Bye
you,
now.
sir. Good night. All right, let's see what we can do with the second contestant. Will you enter and sign in, please? Arlene Eaton, is that right? Is it Miss or Mrs. Eaton?
Mrs.
And where are you from, Mrs. Eaton?
California.
From California?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, California. Well, it's nice to have you with us tonight.
Thank you.
May
It's nice
I
to be here.
present our panel, Mrs. Eaton?
How do you do?
And will you join me over here, please? Do you know how we keep score, Mrs. Eaton?
I believe so.
Then we'll let the audience at home and the audience in the theater know exactly what your line is. All right, panel. Mrs. Eaton is self-employed and deals in a service. And we'll begin the general questioning with Bennett Cerf.
Mrs. Eaton, I presume you have no connection with the famous Eaton family that runs all the department stores in Canada?
Indirectly.
Well, good for you. You perform a service. Mrs. Eaton, is that service ever taken advantage of by people in the motion picture and television industries out of Los Angeles?
Yes.
Would you say that they were your most important customers and that you served them more than other people?
No.
No, that's 1 down and 9 to go. Miss Francis.
Would your service take you to the homes of the people that you give this service to, Mrs. Eaton?
No.
No.
2 down and 8 to go. Mr. Nelson.
Would I be given a bad steer if I were told that a woman could watch your service and stand back and exclaim, "Oh, how chic"?
Will a woman watching the service stand back and say, "How chic"?
Yes.
I doubt it.
I would doubt it, too.
doubt it
I've
very much.
seen a lot of this service in one form or another, and I've never heard it described as chic. I think, Barry, we have to give you a no on that. 3 down and 7 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Mrs. Eaton, are there any men in the United States doing your work?
Yes.
Is it more usual for a man to do your work than a woman?
Yes, it is.
Do you use any implements when
No.
you work?
That's 4 down and 6 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mrs. Eaton, do you require a certain degree of training before you're able to do the work that you are now doing?
It's better to have it.
Yes, I would say, Bennett, it's fair to assume that to qualify to do the work, you would have to have a degree of knowledge that satisfied those who had the reasonable right to supervise whether or not you did perform the service.
Could your work be described as fixing or repairing?
No.
No. 5 down and 5 to go, Miss Francis. A special, though, for that one.
Special.
Well, if it has nothing to do with fixing and repairing, does it have anything to do with the other side of the coin? Disassembling or getting rid of?
No.
No. 6 down and 4 to go, Mr. Nelson.
This is a service you would perform indoors, right?
Not necessarily.
But I would say, in part, Barry, it could be performed indoors or it could be performed outdoors.
Outdoors.
No.
It's good
It
to
would be
half
in
right.
part so that you get a qualified answer, but you can continue.
I'll
questions.
settle for that.
You settle.
Is this a sort of thing that would be called creative in any way? Is there something that appears that didn't appear before, let's say?
I lost him.
No, I think that if we did agree it was creative, that might mislead them so much, we'll give them a no. 7 down and 3 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Does this have anything to do with children or animals?
No.
That's 8 down and 2 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mrs. Eaton, does this have anything whatever to do with construction?
No.
9 down and 1 to go, Miss Francis.
You said you could do this work for people in the picture business. Would you ever do it for the picture business per se? Would you ever be called upon to do your service for a motion picture?
Possible.
It's possible, yes.
Possible.
But not exclusively.
Does it require some dexterity?
I'm afraid not.
No, that's 10 down and no more to go, and you shouldn't feel at all bad about not getting Mrs. Eaton's occupation. I think you're the only woman who is licensed to do this in the country. Is that
That's
not
right.
so? Mrs. Eaton is a licensed boxing promoter. The thing that tickles me about it, Mr. Eaton, Cal Eaton, whom I think Los Angeles people, California people, Westerners generally would know, is in sort of a firm with you, really, isn't he? And
Well, let's put it this way.
you're in the firm with Cal Eaton.
I wanna go home.
Cal Eaton does most of the wrestling department, and Mrs. Eaton handles the boxing promotion.
Well, now, what recent matches have you arranged, Mrs. Eaton?
Well, you probably, because this isn't the most recent, but you probably remember the best, the Robinson-Fulmer World
Indeed.
He
Championship
fought
fight
last
of the
night
sports
again.
arena.
You
That
never
was
anything to do
out.
with last night's promotion.
No, I saw it, however. That came out of Madison Square Garden.
And
Well-
good for Sugar Ray Robinson, I say.
That's what I say, too.
Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Eaton.
Thank
It's
you
been
a
nice
lot
to have
for
you with us,
inviting
and
me.
what's my life? We'll meet tonight's mystery guest in just a moment, but first, here is a word from our sponsor. And now we come to the special feature of our program, the appearance of our mystery celebrity, for which, as you all only too well know, the panel is always blindfolded, and the blindfolds are in place, panel?
Yes, sir.
Will you enter Mystery Challenger and sign in, please? As you know, panel, in the case of our Mystery Challenger, a different form of questioning, one question at a time, in turn, moving clockwise, and we'll begin with Barry Nelson.
Well, judging from that ovation, may I assume that you're in the entertainment business?
Yep. Miss Kilgallen?
I was going to ask if you were a curvaceous cutie, but I think after hearing that voice, I won't. Are you by any chance in sports?
1 down and 9 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Would you describe yourself as a motion picture star?
Yep. Miss Francis?
You also appeared in the theater?
Yep. Mr. Nelson?
Have you ever appeared in a television series of your own?
2 down and 8 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Did you ever give me a hat?
Would you repeat that, Dorothy?
Did you ever give me a hat, a straw hat?
Did you ever give Miss Kilgallen a straw hat? Nope. That's 3 down and 7 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Have you ever had what I consider the extreme pleasure of playing in a motion picture with Marilyn Monroe?
Yeah.
Are you Mr. Yves Montand?
Yeah. I must say, it was not only a joy to have Eve with us, but he has a special kind of courage. He's becoming proficient in our language, but is uncertain of some of it. And I think it takes a lot of moxie, as we used to say when I was a boy, to come out and face a panel of 4 when you're a little uncertain about a language. And I think that was fine. Nice to have you with us, Steve.
John, isn't Mr. Montand going to do a one-man show? Don't you think you ought to mention that?
Well, all right.
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night, Mr. Montand is going to do a one-man show called An Evening with Yves Montand.
See you Tuesday night.
Bennett's right. Mr. Yves Montand is going to do a one-man show on Tuesday, An Evening with Yves Montand at the Golden Theater here in New York. That should have been announced. And I should also say that, panel, I've got to admit that you've done rather well so far, with the exception of one little trip down the aisle. And we'll have another contestant after this word from our alternate sponsor. And now let's meet another contestant. Will you enter and sign in, please? Anthony Stennis, right? Mr. Stennis, where are you from?
Jamaica, Long Island.
Jamaica, Long Island. Neighbors, that's what we are. May I present the panel?
Well.
You join me over here, Mr. Stennis. Do you know how we keep score?
Yes, I do.
Fine. We'll let the audience at home and the audience in the theater know exactly what your line is. All right, panel, Mr. Stennis is salaried and deals in a service, and we'll begin the general questioning with Dorothy Kilgallen.
Mr. Stennis, can both men and women enjoy your services?
Yes.
Do you work indoors?
No.
Should have known that.
One down and 9 to go, and we'll have Mr. Cerf.
Mr. Stennis, do you work for a non-profit making organization?
No.
2 down and 8 to go, Miss Francis.
When you work out of doors, Mr. Stennis, do you move around in your job?
Somewhat, yes.
Quite a bit, actually.
Do you move other places than on the ground?
Yes.
Could you move in the air?
Yes.
Would you say that your job really requires you to move in the air?
Yes.
It's better that way. Do you have anything to do with airplanes or rockets?
Yes.
Are you part of the development, or are you a pilot on any of the things like the, well, not the X-15, but I mean that sort of missile?
Well, I mean, you're getting, you mean to cover the whole area of missilery, rocketry?
I'd like to cover everything I can to get a yes.
Well, as long as you're up in the air, we'll have to admit that Mr. Stennis has something to do with what's, up in the air.
Right. Well, do you have anything to do with experimentation?
No.
No.
No, I wouldn't think so. 3 down and 7 to go, Barry Nelson.
Would you wear some kind of a uniform while performing this service?
Somewhat, yes.
But you mean here merely clothes other than normal street clothes?
Other than normal street clothes. Would there be a moving vehicle involved in what you do?
Yes.
Would this vehicle be something that was not in existence 3 years ago?
No.
No, I would have to agree it was in existence 3 years
certainly
ago.
was.
4 down and 6 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Well, are you the pilot of a heavier-than-air craft?
Yes.
Right? Is it something more unusual than, let us say, a constellation? Or,
Yes.
You mean in its characteristics?
Is it some type of jet plane?
No, it's not a jet plane.
No. And here the issue, if the issue of its unusual character has to do with...
Would we have seen fewer, was what I meant.
Would you have seen a few? Yes, you would have...
Would we have seen fewer than we have seen of the ordinary planes that we see out at Idlewild?
You
The
would
type of thing
see
that
fewer of the type, yes, than the normal transport, Dorothy.
Yes,
That's what
that's
you had in
right.
mind. That's 5 down and 5 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mr. Stennis, is it some particular plane that we're trying to get at, or just the kind of, rather than the kind of vehicle or thing that you operate? Is it a particular
Well, I think that the area of identification which you're probing would very probably give you some guidance ultimately to an identification of the line or the specific employment which has brought Mr. Stinnes here to the theater tonight.
Mr. Stinnes, does the plane or helicopter or whatever it is that you are connected with carry passengers?
No.
That's 6 down and 4 to go, Miss Francis.
Do you have anything to do with the Army, Navy, or the Air Force?
Not now.
Oh, did you do well when you had the job?
7 down and 3 to go, Barry Nelson.
Would this have anything to do with the weather?
Yes.
Would you be spotting hurricanes?
Well, now, before you ask that question, let me say it has something to do with the weather, but we would not want to suggest to you that it has something directly concerned with controlling weather. But weather does play a part, as you normally expect.
I see. Would you necessarily have had to have training by the government in order to perform this work at maximum efficiency?
Not necessarily, no.
No. 8 down and 2 to go, Miss Kilgallen.
Would you say that you were the pilot of a type of craft that, in all probability, none of us has been in?
Yes.
That's a fair assumption, Dorothy, but does not rule out the possibility that you particularly, as a reporter who has perhaps, ridden in many kinds of aircraft, have not at some time been in a plane that would be very similar to the kind that Mr. Stinnes is associated with.
Are you a test pilot?
Not now, no.
No. Was at one time. Oh, that makes it 9 down and 1 to go, Mr. Cerf.
Mr. Stinnes, is the plane that you fly doing something in the way of either seeding or causing rain or having some influence on the weather?
No.
Or nothing to do with seeding for destroying
Or rescuing?
Mosquitoes or insects? Or...
No, sir.
Well,
No, but what is left, Bennett? Because you're very close.
Rescue?
And as a publisher, you should have been the one to get it.
As a publisher, I should.
Sure.
You mean he's scattering pamphlets all over the Iron Curtain?
Well, that's very close, too, but I thought Bennett, as a publisher, would get the skywriting after all. The thing
competition.
It's competition, that's why Bennett could. But the thing that amazed me, what is your company?
The Skywriter Corporation of America.
But how old is it?
Oh, since 1922.
And what have you written
1922.
lately?
Well, the funny part about it is I met Mr. Stinnes very briefly before the program tonight, and I said, at the World Series, were you up there? And he said, yeah, I was up there. And I said, now, last week I was walking up 6th Avenue, and you were up again, weren't you? And he said, yeah, I was up again.
Why don't you give us a little free What's My Line writing in the skies of it?
Actually, Mr. Stinnes, what kind of a plane do you use?
It's an 86, North American 86.
Which I think probably you have written in, Dorothy. At one time when you were covering a story, which I didn't want to mislead
We
you.
should have guessed that.
Yeah,
You should have been in?
we should have gotten it.
Yeah. Well, I think you danced all around it. You came close. You can have that satisfaction. And thank you for giving us an interesting period on What's My Line. Nice to see you. And now, let me say, panel, it's been a joy to have all of you with us, particularly Barry Nelson, and good night, Arlene.
Good night, John. Good night, Barry.
Good night, Arlene.
Come again, Barry. Good night, Bennett.
Hope the planes are running well this week. Good night, John.
And good night, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us on What's My Line.
What's My Line? It's a CBS television network production in association with Mark Goodson and Bill Todman. This is Ralph Paul speaking.